G'day guys, Matty Sims here and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Sims. And in today's episode we will have our Raw live from Madison Square Garden review. And what a show it was. A really entertaining show, a really entertaining episode of Raw, and I think they're starting to turn the corner a bit, WWE. The last few weeks, the episodes have been pretty solid, with not much actually happening that's groundbreaking, amazing, just some really good wrestling, some really good storytelling, and yeah, just this bit of forward momentum going towards Clash of Champions and post Clash of Champions with Hell in a Cell and Survivor Series. Yeah, I'm excited to get into this review and talk about how I felt the show was and my thoughts on it. So we'll kick off in order with today's episode. We won't chop and change it. We'll go straight from what happened start to finish. And Raw kicks off with the glass-shattering Stone Cold Steve Austin returns to Madison Square Garden. He said for the first time in over 20 years, it's a bit less than that. Last time he was there was WrestleMania 20, refereeing the Brock Lesnar and Goldberg match. Not surprised he didn't really want to talk about that, as that was a bit of a shit show, as we know. But yeah, cuts in a great promo about his history at Madison Square Garden. Talks about the time Undertaker accidentally knocked him out, how it was the first time he was knocked out. And just reminiscing a bit before we get into the contract signing. And Braun Strowman comes out, introduced by Stone Cold, of course. And Stone Cold, really made these two bigger and larger than life than what they already are. They do have the potential, Strowman and Seth Rollins, to be, the next real generation, of superstars. They're almost at that level. It'll never be the size of the Attitude Era, but they're almost at that level of absolute, professional wrestling superstars. And they already are, really. But, Stone Cold actually turns down a handshake from Braun Strowman. So still a bit of tension. Strowman, as we know last week, a bit upset. Seth Rollins is Stone Cold's guy, and Stone Cold actually plays on that when he introduces Seth Rollins. A bit more excited, a bit more, grunt into it. Seth freaking Rollins, comes out. They get the contract's not underway, but they do end the end handshake straight away. Stone Cold, he says, let's get this done. They handshake, done. Stock standard, I'm going to beat you, you're going to beat me. Promo, it's what's there. Stone Cold really made this with AJ Styles and the OC interrupt again. Was worried it might lead to another tag match. Luckily it didn't. That's later in the night. We'll get into that. And Styles cut, I thought, a really good, really funny, and really awesome promo, I felt. It made him look like a star, a really big star. And AJ Styles, he's a great wrestler. Maybe still one of the best in the world. A legend of the business. But always, his promos, he can always pull off a great promo, but usually they're, just your average promo. This, I thought he was really good. Did his Stone Cold impression, which was hilarious. He's telling Stone Cold to shut up, calling him an old fart, which is the mummest, the most dad joke you could ever have and mum joke you could ever have there. And the crowd chanting, what was it, soccer mum hair or something like that, which was funny as well. It turns into a bit of a brawl, scuffle. Stone Cold moves the table out of the way, which is cool. Sort of, getting the tussle underway. Strowman clears house. Seth Rollins, I think it's tossed out of the ring by AJ Styles, and AJ Styles is celebrating. Kind of forgets that Stone Cold standing right behind him, and Stone Cold with an amazing stunner. AJ Styles sells it beautifully. And yeah, the segment ends. Stone Cold with a bit of a beer bash, and yeah, he goes, and we go to ad break, and straight from the ad break, Cedric Alexander is in the ring to face AJ Styles, and Cedric starts off so hot here, getting the upper hand on AJ Styles right as the bell rings. AJ Styles still probably a bit battered, a bit knocked about from that Stone Cold stunner. And yeah, Cedric really had the upper hand for most of the match. It took a while for AJ Styles to get into the match as well. Like, yeah, just Cedric was on top of him for the entire time. There is a moment where Styles does get back into the match when he attacks the injured shoulder from last week. So again, he's got it taped up. They're still playing that he does have this injured shoulder, and that allows AJ Styles to get some momentum in the match. But Cedric gets back on top, and as he goes up to the top rope, he gets attacked by the OC and wins by disqualification. Now, we said this last week, the Viking Raiders, they need something. They need something other than squash matches, and this is perfect. They've been put into a title feud, a main roster feud, and a pretty big feud in the show. They come out and help Cedric, so they are babyfaces for now. I predict them to turn because they are a heelish tag team. And yeah, so they team up with Cedric and attack. They attack the OC, clear house, and help Cedric. And Cedric stands there, pretty happy that he's got a bit of backup. And yeah, the Viking Raiders and Cedric, they stand tall at the end, taking out the OC. Yeah, good for the Viking Raiders. This is what they needed. Maybe a bit of a different way I would have thought to bring them into a feud, but still a solid start. And it plays into later in the night, which is really good, which we'll get into as well. But first up, Sasha Banks and Bayley cut a backstage promo before their match against the Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, and your pretty stock standard, sort of stuff as always, really. But also they showed Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair backstage, and Becky Lynch just greasing off Charlotte, could not take her eyes off her, doesn't trust her still, and it didn't play too much into the actual match itself, which we'll get into, of course. But yeah, so again, normal promo. We then head into an ad break, and we return from the ad break with a Connor's Cure promo, I guess you could call it, video package. Just, the amazing work they do for charity, WWE. Yeah, just another video package for it. Roman Reigns comes out, brings out, a bunch of kids who are sadly dealing with, cancer and stuff like that, which is really sad. But, there's always good things that come out of stuff, and, that would have been a great moment for those kids, which is really good for them. We then head into another ad break and return with Becky and Charlotte coming down to the ring individually, of course. And as Bayley and Sasha Banks make their way down to the ring, Charlotte and Becky attack the Hug and Boss Connection and get the upper hand, lay a bit of a beat down on them. A good match, as always. These four women are probably the arguably four best women in the world of professional wrestling. It is tough because I don't watch, New Japan and stuff. I'm sure there's some amazing women like Asuka. She's amazing as well. But definitely for WWE, these are probably the four best they've ever had, wrestling wise. Not stars yet, not those big stars like Trish Stratus, but yeah, definitely the four best. They are the four horsewomen for a reason. And yeah, it was a pretty big beatdown that Charlotte and Becky put on them. Again, Sasha Banks and Bayley not really getting into the match until later on. They did get the upper hand at one point, but the dominance of Becky and Charlotte, even though they still despise each other, their individual strengths were able to get them over the line. Charlotte pinned the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley heading into the pay-per-view with the natural selection. So she's got the momentum going into that, as well as Becky Lynch. Wrestling Inc.'s algorithm, Raj Giri's algorithm, says that Charlotte now will lose at Clash of Champions, but we shall see. I do expect Bayley to retain. She's just turned heel. You've got to build her up as a big heel. Her and Sasha Banks, a big heel duo. Maybe don't take the belt off Becky Lynch until, maybe a bigger pay-per-view comes around. But, we'll see what happens with that. And next up, a great match overall. Really, I thought it was a really good match. Really good tag team match. And next up, we had Rey Mysterio in his return match against Grand Metalik. And again, they just did some really good lucha things, didn't they? Amazing high flying spots by Grand Metalik. He is the king of the ropes, and he put his strength, to use in this match. And Rey Mysterio let Metalik get a lot of stuff in, which was good to see. A really scary spot. Metalik went for this, I don't know what it would be called, but front flip over the top ropes, and landed right on Rey Mysterio's head. Hit him in the head, and then as they came down, sat onto his head. Luckily, nothing bad came out of that. Just a really cool looking spot in the end. But yeah, Rey Mysterio wins with a 619 and a frog splash, and a show of respect at the end of it. Rey Mysterio and Metalik had, which was good to see. Rey Mysterio, as we know, he's back. He's probably, he probably knows his role within the company, just to get other guys over. Same what happened with Andrade. Andrade is pretty over with the fans now, and a lot of fans want to see him getting a bigger push. Hopefully he does. But Metalik, I don't know if he's ever going to get to that level of, a top championship, maybe cruiserweight title. He just doesn't seem to be connecting with the fans, but a match like this definitely won't hurt his chances at, connecting with the fans. And I thought it was a great match. We go to the back, and there's a bit of a talk. There was talk throughout the night. Bobby Roode and Ziggler went up to the OC and said, if you recruit us, we can, take out these guys and blah, blah. And you then saw Cedric, Strowman and Rollins in the back talking. You can't hear what they're saying, but it's sort of hinted that they're talking about them. And it's announced a 10-man tag team match for the main event. Viking Raiders teaming up with Cedric Alexander, Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins to take on the OC and Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler. And yeah, a pretty exciting main event. I mean, it's one of those Teddy Long moments, isn't it? They call for a tag team match in the main event. But yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but it was a pretty good tag match. And we'll get into it. Next up was the Street Profits cutting another awesome promo backstage. And they are just absolutely hilarious. And hopefully, after Clash of Champions now, they can get a tag team title program going, maybe on SmackDown. October, there is a hint at there's been rumors of a brand split, not a brand split, a draft, I should say. Another superstar shakeup. Probably more of a draft, I would say, especially with NXT going to 2 hours now, and live on the USA Network. But yeah, hopefully they can get a tag team title program, maybe on SmackDown, maybe on Raw. Doubt they'll go back to NXT. They still have the NXT, banner when their name pops up. So maybe they're just going to be on Raw and then they'll go back to NXT. This will just get them some exposure, but I mean, we'll soon find out. We then just go to a video package, hyping up the Roman Reigns, Eric Rowan, and Daniel Bryan situation. Again, it's the video packages hype this up. It's been a long few weeks trying to get to this conclusion, and I still don't think we're at the conclusion. Daniel Bryan, I feel, still helped Eric Rowan. He told Eric Rowan what to do, and we know Daniel Bryan. He's twisted, he's psychotic, and he'll do anything to trick the fans. He hates liars, and he's been lying this whole time to the WWE Universe and to Roman Reigns. And at Clash of Champions, is Roman Reigns versus Eric Rowan. I'm assuming we'll hear more, on SmackDown, and also at Clash of Champions on Daniel Bryan's involvement in this, because I don't think this is a babyface turn for Daniel Bryan. I think this is just him turning more and more psychotic, and I can't wait to see what happens with that. Next up was the semi-final King of the Ring tournament triple threat match, and again, another great match. There's people shitting on Baron Corbin, and I think it's finally turned into where it's not just go away heat, it's actual heat, and he deserves it. I was at WrestleMania. I'm going to talk about this a lot, and people were literally shitting on him when I was there. Like, he deserves this. He's been shitted on TV. He was blamed for the ratings dropping, which wasn't his fault. That was the creative side. That was behind the scenes. They blamed it on him, story-wise. And for him to still be coming up every week and being a great heel, he looks great as King Corbin. I wanted Ricochet to win, But Baron Corbin as King Corbin, it can get him a few months of a good heel run in the company. Maybe not at Universal title level, but if the United States title changes hands at Clash of Champions, I doubt it, but we'll see what King Corbin can do, because he did win the semi-final match. Great spot at the end where Ricochet hits the 630, and you think he's going to win, and Corbin just grabs him, doesn't even hit, just tosses Ricochet over the barricade. Doesn't even move his own finisher, and he celebrates like he's already won the thing. But we'll find out who he faces with SmackDown Live tomorrow. Elias versus Chad Gable. They're really building up Chad Gable as this underdog, fighter, and Elias with Shane McMahon on his side. Shane McMahon hasn't been on TV for a couple of weeks now. Could he be there tomorrow night to help Elias win? We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Corbin, I'm predicting Chad Gable to get through to the final, with Baron Corbin winning at Clash of Champions to become King of the Ring. But I hopefully will do a predictions show this week, later in the track. And hopefully we can hopefully I can upload that later this week, when we know a bit more what matches are happening, because we still don't have the United States Championship match announced yet. Next up was Lacey Evans versus Natalya, and a second week in a row, stock standard Natalya 50-50 booking, gets the win with the sharpshooter. Not much more to say about that one. A brand new Firefly Funhouse episode, and again, Bray Wyatt is an absolute genius. That's why he's on my freaking screen right now. He tweets out early in the week, has everyone guessing he's going to attack Stone Cold. He's going to do this, he's going to do that. And all he was tweeting was, he was tweeting to Stone Cold, but he was never going to attack him. He explains what he meant by it in this episode, saying, you can't blame a rattlesnake for being a rattlesnake. They're just, they're rattlesnakes. That's what they do. And, he also said something along the lines of, he doesn't have anything against Stone Cold. All those other general managers, The Fiend did that. Fiend has nothing against Stone Cold. They're different eras, Abby the Witch's clock is broken on 316. She's saying it's been stuck on 316 ever since, the Stranger. I'll call him Stone Cold the Stranger since he showed up. Stuck on 316. Doesn't mean much. Bray Wyatt gets a hammer, smashes it. And then the clock is stuck on 11:19. Now, on Twitter, a lot of people were saying, does this mean it's The Undertaker? 11:19 was, his debut. 11:19 wasn't his debut. He filmed a episode of Superstars on 19th of November, 1990, 3 days before his actual debut at Survivor Series. That episode of Superstars, aired after Survivor Series, so it doesn't count as his debut. His debut is the Survivor Series 1990 on the 22nd of November. But with Bray Wyatt being, inside the business as a kid, he's come from inside the business. We know how he only hints at things. He never actually goes full blown with it. And could he just be hinting at the Undertaker feud still? Because he would know that the Undertaker debuted on the 19th of November and not actually the 22nd. A lot of people wouldn't know that. It also is a scripture from the Bible, I believe Matthew, 11:19. So again, it could just be another biblical scripture, a biblical reading. Hopefully it's hinting at a few towards with the Undertaker at Survivor Series, potentially retiring the Undertaker. Next year, though, will most likely Survivor Series will be on the exact date the Undertaker debuted, the 22nd of November. And exactly, 30 years? Yeah, 30 years since the Undertaker debuted. Could he could they hold it out for another year? I don't know. Could Bray Wyatt, could they not mess up Bray Wyatt for an entire year? I hope not. I don't think they will. I think this Fiend's character, Bray Wyatt, he's got a lot of creative control. He's got a lot of freedom within his own character, which is good to see for once. But yeah, you never know. Undertaker could retire this year. maybe next year WrestleMania, maybe Survivor Series next year. We'll soon find out, I guess, tomorrow on SmackDown. If Bray Wyatt attacks The Undertaker, I'm going to try and keep a lid on it. But hopefully he attacks The Undertaker. Let's be real. We do want to see, at least maybe not attack him, just them two standing in the ring, maybe lighting and flashing and stuff like that. That would just be cool to see. But yeah, we go straight then into the main event, the 10-man tag team match. And again, another pretty entertaining match. Almost your typical 10-man tag. The babyfaces, getting beaten up by the 5 other men, and then they come back and win. But it was pretty entertaining, and it was good to see Cedric Alexander and the Viking Raiders get some good spots in this match, with Cedric Alexander picking up the win on the United States champion. So that means he's going to face AJ Styles at Clash of Champions and lose, according to Raj Guru's algorithm from Wrestling Inc. And hopefully he wins. But yeah, a good match. And as soon as Cedric Alexander hits the lumbar check, 1, 2, 3, the glass shatters. Stone Cold comes out for a big beer bash to send the fans home even more happy. A great show, and they're just ending with a bloody massive beer bash, which would have been awesome. To hear that glass shatter in person. I really thought, a lot of people thought as well Stone Cold would be out WrestleMania, and a bit shattering not to hear the glass shatter, but yeah, that WrestleMania was still a great show anyway. But yeah, so lucky for the fans at Madison Square Garden to be sent home with that massive send off by Stone Cold, and one more show from Madison Square Garden tomorrow. Hopefully it lives up to the same, building the same hype as this one was. I thought, this Raw was great. Really, I'll give it a B+, almost an A minus, B+ to A-. It was really good, I thought. And sometimes it is just how you start the show and how you end the show. Everyone's going to remember Stone Cold. The Bray Wyatt stuff might get lost in the shuffle a bit, but a lot of the fans, the hardcore fans, will remember the Bray Wyatt promo vignette, I guess. And yeah, I think it was a good go-home show. They can always do better. Maybe spark a bit more tension between Strowman and Rollins. That's what I would have had. But, I mean, again, other than that, it's really just, trying to find nitpicking, really. So, yeah, I just feel it was a great show. Great job, great crowd as well. A crowd really makes it. And when you got those hardcore fans, in Madison Square Garden, it's a much better show, isn't it? And, same with Chicago and Philly. When those hardcore fans are there, it just makes it so much better. And just a few, things to touch on as well. I've been, WWE, they're probably panicking a little bit with AEW by bringing back so many legends recently, but I feel like most of them, when they've come back, they've worked. It hasn't just been, they've come back, whatever. It's worked within the storyline. Oh, sorry, it's a long show. I've got a yawn. And yeah, I think that the use of Stone Cold tonight was perfect. I would love to see a Stone Cold Steve Austin versus AJ Styles match. Doubt it's ever going to happen. Doubt Stone Cold would, come out of retirement. But well, imagine if you had Stone Cold come back and you had AJ Styles beat him. A TNA guy beating, WWE's guy from the Attitude Era. That would be a big match, and it would sell out. A lot of tickets, a lot of subscription buys. Have Stone Cold come back for one more match, but yeah, doubt it's going to happen. Hopefully, it does happen one day. But the clock is probably running out on that. The glass is slowly shattering on that. But yeah, again, great episode of Raw. Definitely a B+ to A-. Excited for Clash of Champions. Excited for SmackDown. And hopefully we can see some title changes at Clash of Champions. As I said, guys, I'll hopefully have a predictions video up later this week. Trying to communicate with some friends. Maybe they can give me their predictions, and I can, might have a little competition and see who, sort of predicts the best. But I'll let you guys know on that. Follow me on Twitter, link in the description to my Twitter, as well as my Twitch, which I don't really use Twitch that much at the moment. But yeah, follow me over there on Twitter. I tweet out during the shows and stuff. So yeah, if you want to keep up to date with me, on my socials, Twitter is down below. But yeah, again, great episode of Raw. Hope you guys enjoyed it at home. Let me know your thoughts on the show in the comments below, and let me know if you guys are excited for SmackDown and Clash of Champions coming up. Anyway, guys, like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next episode.